Iris had a brain bleed and was unresponsive when she was taken to the hospital last Sunday, June 25th. They say she was on a court-ordered visitation at the time. According to the Allegheny County Medical Examiner's report, she died Thursday at UPMC Children's Hospital.
Iris Rita Alfaro was born on December 2nd, 2021 in Butler, Pennsylvania, to her mother, Emily Alfaro, and her father, Bailey Jacoby. Iris was said to be very happy and a bright baby. She loved watching the show Miss Rachel, and she learned a lot of sign language from watching it. Iris also loved snuggling with her pet cats and dogs, as well as watching the show Bluey and the movie Moana. Baby Iris and her mother were very close. Emily just adored her little girl, and the pair were often seen wearing matching outfits. Iris also lived with her mother Emily most of the time, along with Emily's parents, too. Their names were Candace and Frank Alfaro, or Gaga and Papa to Iris. Now, Bailey still had visitations with his daughter, and he would get to see her every Wednesday as well as every other weekend. She would go stay at his home during these times. This had started when Iris was only 13 months old. Back when Emily had met and started dating Iris's father towards the end of 2020, they had lived together in a house that was located on the 400 block of Electric Street in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. Emily had moved out after her and Bailey split in early 2022, and when they did, Bailey would move in his new girlfriend, Alicia Owens, just a few months later. In the spring of 2023, after Iris returned from a visit at her father's home, she had to be brought to the UPMC Children's Hospital by her mother, Emily. This had come after Emily discovered that her daughter's poop contained 20 water beads, some of which had grown to the size of quarters, button-like batteries, and a screw. Following this incident, police told Iris's mother, Emily, that they believed this had been done to her daughter on purpose. So Emily immediately contacted Children and Youth Services and let them know of her and authorities' concerns. But the regular visits between Bailey and his daughter would not end up being limited. Emily was even told that if she did not continue to let her daughter go on visits with Bailey, then she would likely be held in contempt of court and could potentially lose custody of her daughter. Then, on June 25th, 2023, Iris was again spending the weekend at her father Bailey's home, when Bailey had to go out to the store quickly, and he left his daughter in the care of his girlfriend, Alicia Owens. But while he was out, Alicia called the father and told him that something was wrong with his daughter. Bailey immediately rushed back home to his Newcastle, Delaware home, where he found Iris unresponsive, and he contacted 911. After contacting emergency services, Bailey also contacted Iris's mother, Emily, who would arrive at his home around the time that the first responders did. And upon her arrival, Emily saw Alicia standing at the back of the ambulance, crying. The mother was then told by Bailey that their daughter Iris had been vomiting before she suddenly had fallen unresponsive. Iris would be rushed to UPMC Jameson Hospital in Newcastle for treatment. But roughly an hour later, she would need to be airlifted to UPMC Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh. And regardless of the life-saving efforts made by doctors, Iris would end up dying 4 days later, on June 29th, 2023, due to organ failure. When Iris had arrived at the hospital, the emergency physicians had told police that they strongly believed her condition had been caused by child abuse. So both Alicia and Iris's father were brought in for questioning. When police spoke with Alicia, who had been the one who was home with Iris at the time, she said that the little girl had hit her head after she had cramped up and fallen off of the bed. Now, at first, Alicia said that Iris did not hit her head, and Bailey had relayed this over to the 911 operator. But then Alicia could actually be heard during the call chiming in, saying that the toddler did indeed hit her head when she fell. Alicia told police during her interrogation that she'd sat Iris down on the bed to feed her. And during that time, Iris's arms and legs suddenly began to cramp up. The little girl then fell sideways off of the bed and her chest collapsed. Alicia said she immediately started CPR and contacted Bailey. But she hadn't contacted 911. The other thing is, the mattress that Alicia claimed that Iris had fallen off of was only 6 inches off a carpeted floor. Alicia also told authorities that neither she or her boyfriend Bailey ever let Iris out of their sight. They were very diligent with their care of her. She also went so far as to say that there was no chance she had gotten into anything because they always kept the bathroom cabinets locked. She would also end up being asked by authorities to provide her cell phone so they could inspect it, which she did. And during Bailey's questioning, he would tell authorities that he thought it was odd his girlfriend had not contacted 911 prior to him getting back home. He also said that in the 24 hours prior to Iris being brought to the hospital, she had vomited 2 or 3 times, but other than that, she had been normal. And even though Alicia's story didn't seem to make much sense, and police also had her phone in their possession, it wouldn't be until January of 2024 that an arrest was made. At that time, Alicia was finally placed under arrest, and she was charged with criminal homicide, aggravated assault of a child less than 6 years of age, endangering the welfare of a child, and aggravated assault of a child less than 13 years of age. Alicia is currently being held without bail and is possibly facing a life sentence. Iris's family was ecstatic that Alicia had finally been arrested after months and months of waiting. Prior to the announcement of Alicia's arrest, Iris's family posted yard signs, banners, and billboards throughout the county, trying to get justice for their baby girl. So it had been determined that the toddler had died of acetone poisoning, and her cause of death was homicide. Doctors told police that Iris had a subdural hematoma, bilateral retinal hemorrhages, acetone in her blood, and her body was in organ failure, all of which occurred at some point during the weekend while she was in the custody of her father and Alicia. The doctor also told police that any reasonable caretaker would have noticed almost immediate cognitive changes in Iris. And when authorities had searched through Alicia's phone, they had found numerous Google searches that she had done from February to June, which means that she had also looked up these terms prior to when Iris had come home with water beads, batteries, and a screw in her diaper. These searches had been in relation to chemicals poisonous to a baby. Alicia had looked up questions about children drinking acetone or nail polish. She had searched poisonous beauty products, water beads near me, poisonous products to babies and kids, what happens if a baby swallows a button battery, medications that poison children, medications you shouldn't give to babies, and more. This evil woman had also searched how to pass a polygraph test. Then she had deleted all the searches from her phone's history. Luckily, investigators had been able to extract them. The medical examiner and forensic pathologist also said that both Iris's blood and urine were acidic. The level of acetone that was found in her blood was 0.32%. A lethal level for an adult is just 0.04 to 0.05%. So for a child, being 18 months old, it's even less than that. She had a huge amount of acetone in her system. The forensic pathologist had also determined that the acetone had been ingested orally, and it would have almost immediately caused vomiting, nausea, dizziness, and lethargy. And if enough was given, it would cause a child to go right into a coma. Now, the police did not arrest Bailey Jacoby in connection to his daughter's death, as there was no evidence linking him to it whatsoever, and he had been questioned by authorities multiple times, and each time had been very cooperative. However, when police did speak with Bailey, they learned a possible motive for Iris's murder. Apparently, the day that he had left his daughter home alone with Alicia, he had had a fight with Alicia earlier. And then Alicia had told him that she wasn't getting enough attention from him. Iris's grandmother also believes that Alicia was jealous of the good co-parenting relationship that Emily and Bailey had, which is petty as fuck.
So all we're doing is putting one foot in front of the other.
It's just horrible. This is something that shouldn't happen to anybody. That beautiful baby.
Candace and Frank Alfera hold back tears as they remember the day their daughter Emily called them to say their 18-month-old granddaughter Iris, who lived with them, was unresponsive while in her father's care.
She changed our lives, made us the happiest two people in the world. I used to tell Emily, oh, I thought I loved you. I said, I'm sorry, but Iris is this much more, and she'd get mad.
As far as I'm concerned, Child Youth Services dropped the ball.
Now that an arrest has been made, the Alferas say they're going to let the justice system take over, while they focus their attention on keeping baby Iris's memory alive, while making certain this doesn't ever happen again.
We want to change the law to prevent this from happening. At least change it to the point where they have to have supervised visitation if something is wrong.
Emily promised. Emily's making it her life goal to make sure the laws are changed and that Iris's memory's on forever.
Following Iris's death, her great-aunt, Crystal Joseph, publicly said, "There is no justice. The only justice there can ever be in this world is to save another child, because we couldn't save Iris." She also said that the news of Alicia Owen's arrest did not bring any closure to the family, because they will forever be paralyzed with grief. She continued on saying, "We miss our precious Iris with our entire beings and souls." On Sunday, July 2nd, 2023, a candlelight vigil was held for Iris Alfera at Riverwalk Park in Newcastle. During the vigil, her mother Emily read a statement in which she referred to her daughter as her beautiful angel baby, and said she never thought she would be saying goodbye to the biggest light of her life. Emily also said, "You're one of the smartest little girls that I ever met, and intelligent beyond compare. I just pray that you're watching over me as I dedicate my life to you. I love you forever and always." And a private memorial service was also held for her at the Ed and Dawn De Carbo Funeral Home in Newcastle. And immediately following, baby Iris was cremated. Bella Fontanelle was born sometime around April of 2017, though there's no exact birthday available. Her parents' names were Michael Fontanelle and Jennifer Zeledin. Bella was a beautiful, funny, and kind little girl, and she loved Disney princesses as well as playing dress-up. She was also a kindergartner at St. Matthew the Apostle School in River Ridge, Louisiana. Bella's parents had met in college. They both had received degrees in accounting, and both went on to be CPAs. They married and remained together for several years, and during that time, they had two beautiful daughters. Bella was the youngest, and then she had her sister, who was only a year older than her, Aria. Shortly after Bella was born, Michael and Jennifer split up. And even though their divorce was a difficult one, they still maintained joint custody and co-parented to the best of their abilities. Michael and Jennifer ended up living close to one another after the divorce in Harahan, Louisiana, which is a suburb of New Orleans. They both lived in the same neighborhood, about 2 blocks from one another. This neighborhood was quaint, safe, and the neighbors were known to be friendly and considerate. So 2 years after Michael and Jennifer ended their relationship, Michael began dating a woman by the name of Hannah Landon. She also goes by the aliases Boonok Lim and Boonok Landon. Now, it's unclear how her and Michael met. However, she did move into the house that Michael owned and lived in with his girls sometime between 2018 and 2019. Prior to this, Hannah had lived in various apartments in the Mobile, Alabama area, about 150 miles northeast of Harahan. In May of 2013, Hannah had married her former husband, Donald Dwayne Landon, but it's unknown when they got divorced. She also has a son in Florida, but it's unclear exactly what that mother-son relationship looks like. That's about all we know at this time about Hannah, though there are claims that she had abandoned her previous family. At the time of this crime, April 2023, Michael and Hannah had lived together for more than 4 years at their home on Donnellan Drive. Hannah was seen as a stepmother figure for the girls. Now, Hannah was also very jealous of Jennifer, Michael's ex-wife. Now, there was no reason to be, as there was no feelings left between the two of them, but you know how some women can be. She also seemed very jealous of Michael's 2 daughters. Because of all this jealousy, Hannah made it a point to make it look like her, Michael, Bella, and Aria were a very close and loving family. She would dress identical to the girls, a lot. And not just for the holidays, but for many pictures and occasions. Now, family friends thought this was kind of odd because Hannah wasn't the girls' real mother, and their real mother was very much involved in their lives. And all of this was just for show, because her relationship with the girls was not as close as she was making it out to be. In fact, Bella had at one point told a school counselor that she did not like going to her father's house and that Hannah was mean to her and her sister. Even Michael's mother, Barbara Fontanelle, was not a huge fan of Hannah. In fact, his entire family found Hannah to be strange and unsettling, they said. She wasn't close to anyone in Michael's family, despite the two having been together for years. And since Hannah was jealous of Jennifer, needless to say, those two didn't get along either. It seems like Hannah really didn't get along with anybody in Michael's life. So it seems like Hannah really didn't like anybody that Michael came in contact with. It sounds like she was very controlling and wanted to be the only person in his life. Now, I don't know this for sure, but that's what it sounds like to me. And why Michael didn't see that sooner and realize maybe she was a good actress. It's believed that due to the persistent conflict that Hannah was having with Jennifer, Hannah would take out her anger on Bella. So it doesn't say that she was actually physical towards her, but it sounds like it was more of like an emotionally and mentally type of, Coincidentally, Bella was also the one who most closely resembled her mother. Then there was an incident on June 8th, 2021 that led to a physical altercation between Hannah and the girl's biological mom. That day, Jennifer, Hannah, Michael, Bella, Aria, and Jennifer's sister, Evelyn Zellenden, were attending Bella and Aria's swim meets at the Riverside Country Club in Harahan. Jennifer approached her daughters to give them hugs and congratulate them on a job well done. But then Hannah intervened and grabbed one of the girls from Jennifer. It would not let Jennifer hug her own daughter. Yeah, that'd be the day. Hannah started going off on Jennifer about how it was Michael's custody day and that's why she couldn't see them. She was simply trying to talk to her daughters and hug them. She wasn't trying to take them anywhere. And even if she was, Jennifer and Michael had joint custody. So if it was okay with Michael, she could have taken them. So in order to end the conflict, Michael told Hannah to let Jennifer hug her own daughter for 1 minute. Hannah agreed. Not that it matters, because I don't care if you agree. I'm hugging my own daughter. Get out of the way. So since Hannah agreed to let Jennifer get a hug from her own daughter, she decided she was going to take out her cell phone and start recording Jennifer. Jennifer's sister, Evelyn, put her hand in front of the camera and told her to stop recording. Well, Hannah didn't like this and slapped Evelyn's hand away. Evelyn told Hannah to never touch her again, at which point Hannah decided to do the exact opposite and grab Evelyn's hair and start yanking it. Evelyn reciprocated and started yanking on Hannah's hair. A bystander ended up stepping in and breaking up the quarrel. The police were called and both women were pulled aside and interviewed separately. Hannah was described as being extremely uncooperative, and she kept blaming Jennifer and Evelyn for everything that happened. Of course she did. Hannah's version of the story was that she was simply getting one of the girls out of the pool, and Evelyn came up to her, grabbed her by the shoulder, spun Hannah around, and then attacked her, completely unprovoked. Hannah said it was then that she pulled out her phone to record, but she wasn't sure if she caught anything. She also would not provide the video to police. It's also to be noted that Hannah would not give police officers any of her personal information until she was threatened with charges. She at first lied to officers. When they asked her for her phone number, she said she didn't have a phone, which directly contradicted her telling them that she took out her phone to record this all happening. She also told them that people just got in contact with her via email. Oh, okay. So they asked her, just to humor her, I'm sure, what Michael's phone number was. She told them that Michael also did not have a phone. They said, well, whose phone did we just see him using earlier? To which she said, oh, I don't know. Hannah received a summons for simple battery due to this incident. And at that time, Hannah decided that she was going to file a temporary restraining order against Jennifer and her sister Evelyn. In order to obtain the restraining order, Hannah had claimed that Jennifer had threatened her many times, as well as assaulted her. She also noted a second altercation that happened on March 17th, 2021. On that day, the women were attending a children's soccer game. Hannah claimed that Jennifer approached her, grabbed her by the wrist, pulled her in close, and told her, I will hurt you. Hannah said that she approached her a second time during the same soccer game and again grabbed her and threatened her. The temporary restraining order was denied by a judge on August 5th, 2021, as there were no grounds to prove any of the things that Hannah was claiming. So that takes us to April of 2023. Michael, who's a certified public accountant and was in the middle of tax season, was extremely busy at work, and he was working up until 10 p.m. some nights. So on the evening of April 25th, Bella and Aria's grandmother brought the two girls to visit their father at work so they could spend some time with him that day. Afterwards, she brought the girls back home, and Hannah was the one that was waiting there for them. So by the time that Michael got home that night, he was overworked and exhausted, and he ended up falling asleep on the living room couch. So it wasn't until the next morning when he woke up on Wednesday, April 26th, that he noticed that Hannah and Bella were nowhere to be seen. He hadn't noticed that they also were not there the night before since he had fallen asleep so quickly. He also could not get a hold of Hannah on her cell phone. So Michael went down to the police station and filed a missing persons report for both of them around 7:30 a.m. A search of the area ensued. The police first went to Michael's house, and they didn't see anything there, no evidence, no trace of them. So next, they decided to go to Bella's biological mother's house, Jennifer. And while they were there, they saw something very strange on the front lawn. And this strange thing was a white 10-gallon bucket just sitting there, and Jennifer said that it had not been there previously. And when police looked in this bucket, they found the most unsettling and gruesome discovery. There was Bella's little body, all scrunched up into the fetal position, inside of this small 10-gallon bucket. Around midnight the previous night, apparently Hannah had gone to the police station, and she looked disheveled and confused, and asked the police if she could make a phone call because she was having some kind of family problem. When they asked her what kind of family problem, trying to help her, she told them she did not want to talk about it. The police noticed that nothing Hannah was saying was really making sense, so they decided to call EMS and bring her to the hospital so that she could get a mental health evaluation done. So around 2 p.m., police went to the hospital where Hannah was. They had not made the connection that the woman from the night previous and the missing woman were the same person. And I'm guessing this was probably because she had aliases, but I'm not sure why they did not connect the dots there. Hannah was placed under arrest at the hospital, and she was charged with first-degree murder as well as obstruction of justice. She was booked into the Jefferson Parish Correctional Center, and she was put on a watch to make sure she didn't try to get rid of herself, so to speak. Both of Bella's biological parents had been questioned and cleared of any involvement. So why was Hannah arrested and charged, you ask? Well, police had spoken to people who lived in the same neighborhood as Jennifer to see if any of them had home surveillance. They happened to find a resident who had a Ring doorbell camera, and his Ring doorbell camera caught something. So as you can see in this footage, Hannah's walking down the sidewalk at 9:35 p.m. with a calm eeriness as if she were just transporting a load of groceries. She's pulling a wagon, and in the wagon is the chlorine bucket. The same chlorine bucket that was found on Jennifer's lawn with Bella's body in it. She was acting like this was no big deal to be walking down the sidewalk like that. And it was pretty early in the night, too. It's not like it was the middle of the night. It was only 9:30. And nobody said they saw anything. So luckily, the Ring doorbell had caught it. After Hannah had left Bella's body behind in the 10-gallon bucket, she then returned the wagon to Michael's home and put her cell phone into a plastic bag and buried it nearby. It's said that investigators are still looking at Hannah's phone, but it's also said that Hannah had searched for defense lawyers on her phone prior to her arrest. Not that any further proof of this murder is needed, in my opinion. It's believed that Bella was manually strangulated while in her father's home before being contorted and shoved into the small 10-gallon bucket that was then transported to her mother's house. Even though there was no motive revealed, the most likely cause is that Hannah was jealous, didn't like Bella, or wanted to get revenge on Jennifer. She very clearly put the bucket on Bella's mother's front lawn, like she wanted her to be the one to discover her daughter like that. Hannah was arraigned in August of this year for her charge of first-degree murder as well as her 2 charges of obstruction of justice. At that time, she pled not guilty. Hannah's lawyers requested that she have access to a psychiatrist. Fabulous idea. Fabulous. She could face a mandatory sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole if she is convicted. She is not going to be facing the death penalty as far as we know, as the prosecution has decided to not pursue that at this time. Bella's principal at St. Matthew's canceled classes for the rest of the week after Bella's body was found. They also offered counseling for the students and teachers at her school. Bella is greatly missed by all of the faculty and students alike. They said that she was a kind and caring little girl who had the best smile. Bella Fontanelle was laid to rest on May 5th, 2023. Her services were held at St. Matthew the Apostle Church. Everyone in attendance wore at least a small amount of red, as it was Bella's favorite color. She was then buried at an undisclosed location.
Around 2 p.m. Saturday, Adam Baker called police to report his daughter missing. He also told investigators that his wife said she last saw Zara asleep in her bed about 12 hours earlier.
I hope and I pray that we'll find her and she'll be okay, because that youngin was the best youngin you can ever ask for.
Zara Baker was born on November 16, 1999, to her mother, Emily Dietrich, and her father, Adam Baker, who both lived in Wagga Wagga, New South Wales, Australia. Zara was said to be a happy, resilient, and bubbly little girl. Her mother, Emily, was only 19 at the time her daughter was born, and she had serious postpartum depression. So after she and Adam separated, when their daughter was 8 months old, Emily decided to give full custody of Zara to him. Then in 2004, Adam took his daughter and moved with his parents to Guru, Queensland, a very small town of only around 400 people, and it was about 23 hours away. Less than a year after their move, at only 5 years old, Zara was diagnosed with bone cancer. This led to her having the bottom part of her leg amputated, right at the knee. But the young girl still remained positive throughout it all, and even told another cancer patient, "It's okay, because I'm going to be getting a Barbie leg, so I don't want you to be upset." Unfortunately, less than 2 years later, her tumors had spread, and Zara would additionally be diagnosed with lung cancer. While she ended up beating her illness, it would leave her with partial hearing loss, and she had to use hearing aids. At the beginning of 2008, Zara's father, Adam, would meet a woman on a social networking site called IMVU. Her name was Elisa Fairchild. 42-year-old Elisa lived halfway across the world from Adam in North Carolina, and she described herself online as being a 40-something Gothic fairy. The couple quickly fell in love, and in June of 2008, Adam would fly Elisa out to Queensland so the two could get married in his parents' backyard. What Adam didn't know was that Elisa was actually already married to somebody else. While she had separated from her ex-husband close to 10 years prior, they had never legally gotten a divorce. But Adam wasn't just Elisa's second husband. Rather, he was her 7th. She'd been married 6 times prior. She also had several adult children of her own from these previous relationships. Not long after they got married, Elisa convinced Adam and Zara to move to North Carolina and live with her. While it would be a big life change for the father and daughter, Adam figured that it would be good for Zara because then she could have a mother figure in her life. She and Elisa got along well too, and it seemed like his new wife had really taken to his daughter. Now, this decision to move to America was despite the fact that while Adam knew that Zara's medical payments would be completely covered in Australia, that wouldn't quite be the same in the United States. But Elisa claimed that she had enough money to pay for anything that Zara might need. So the family moved to Hickory, North Carolina in December of 2008, and they began living with Elisa's father. Come to find out, Elisa didn't really have as much money as she had claimed. In fact, she didn't even have a job and was living off of disability payments. And Adam was in the country on a tourist visa, so legally he couldn't work. Instead, he had to work at a job that was under the table for more hours and less pay. Now, this story that Elisa had told about her having a lot of money wasn't the only lie that she had spewed. Lying was something that she did often, because when she first met Adam, she had told him that she had once been a police officer who was shot in the line of duty. And she also said that she had once been a bounty hunter, neither of which were true. By July of 2008, Elisa had gotten into a big argument with her father, whom the family lived with, and he kicked them out. They then went to live in their own apartment located in Granite Falls. According to their new landlords, Shirley and Daryl, they had only seen Zara on the day that the family moved in, never again after that, so they assumed that she was only a visitor. It wasn't long after the Baker family relocated here that neighbors began complaining about hearing Elisa and Adam yelling and screaming at one another through the walls. The couple would also frequently fight in the parking lot, and even though the altercation started as just verbal, many times they quickly turned physical too. So after only a few months of living there, they were told that they needed to get out. Once the family left, their landlords discovered that in the apartment, a closet door had been removed. And on the closet walls, there were footprints. They also discovered that sheetrock had been torn down in the attic and looked like someone had been lying on it. On top of all that, Shirley and Daryl had noticed that while the Baker family was living there, they had heard noises that were coming from the attic, but never thought anything of it. That's until after they moved out. They hadn't realized that the noises were coming from Zara, who was locked upstairs inside the attic with nothing but a sheet to sleep with. After they left this apartment, the family moved into the Country Manor Estates mobile home park in Hudson. While Zara had been enrolled in school here, she never actually attended, as Elisa claimed to be homeschooling her. Prior to this, the little girl had shown up at her previous school with various injuries on her body, including a black eye. Teachers had gone on to call Child Protective Services, but not much had been done about it. Some of these teachers were so concerned, though, that they had gone out to Zara's home on several occasions to check on her. And one teacher also gave the young girl her phone number, telling her to call her if she ever needed anything. Now, when Child Services had been called in relation to Zara, on at least one occasion, Elisa informed a social worker that Zara's black eye was a result of her cancer treatment. The other bruises on her body she would explain away as being due to Zara falling over since she was so clumsy on her prosthetic leg. The most recent CPS case against the family would be closed out in August of 2010. Now, according to family members, when they had visited the home, Zara would constantly be locked in her room, and she would only be let out for 5 minutes each day so she could eat. If she didn't finish this food, she would be beaten by Elisa. And while relatives said that Adam had never struck his daughter, he also never stopped his wife from doing so. One time when Elisa had hit Zara, she accidentally hit her in her prosthetic leg, and she had done it so hard that she ended up breaking her own hand. But she lied to Adam, telling him that she'd injured herself after falling down. Elisa's daughters had also witnessed their mother mistreat Zara, and they had reported it to Child Services too. But Elisa had been able to explain away the girl's injuries time and time again. This wasn't the first time that the stepmother had dealt with Child Services either, as they had been in her own children's lives with reports dating back to 1999. Elisa liked taking advantage of men too. All of her ex-husbands had either been physically disabled, mentally vulnerable, or both. She had married each one of them shortly after meeting, and then took advantage of them financially. She would also physically and mentally mistreat them and leave them in crippling debt. One of Elisa's ex-husbands, the most recent one before Adam, a man named Aaron Young, was now living just a few trailers down from the family. But when Elisa introduced him to Adam, she introduced him as being her brother. Another neighbor named Renee would see the stepmother treating Zara poorly ever since they moved in. She said that Elisa would smack Zara multiple times because she couldn't run like the other children could. She also told Zara that she was not allowed to get a bike until she could run like the other kids, because until then, she didn't deserve it. Now keep in mind, Zara has a prosthetic leg. At the same time, it appeared that Elisa was jealous of all the attention her stepdaughter got for having cancer. So she lied and said that she also once had cancer, brain cancer in fact, and she had had several tumors surgically removed. In May of 2010, a children's charity donated a pair of hearing aids to Zara. Elisa took her to pick them up.
It sounds better than without them, so I can actually hear more than without my hearing aids.
And while there, onlookers would say that the stepmother genuinely seemed happy and emotional when Zara put the hearing aids in. A few months later, in early September of 2010, Zara and her family moved to a new home in Hickory. This one was rented out to them by Adam's new boss, Mark Coffey. Adam was now working for a tree maintenance company, and he would work very long hours, often leaving before Zara woke up and returning when she was in bed. This meant that Elisa was the little girl's primary caregiver. Only about a month after moving into their new home, on October 9th, 2010, around 5:30 in the morning, Elisa placed a 911 call, saying that there was a fire in their backyard. Once firefighters arrived on the scene, the fire was quickly put out, but one of the firefighters noticed that the door to Adam's work truck was open, and it smelled like gasoline. There was also a white envelope on the windshield, and when they opened it, they found a letter that said, "Mr. Coffey, you like being in control? Now who is in control? We have your daughter and your pot-smoking redhead son is next, unless you do what is asked. $1 million unmarked. We'll be in touch soon. No cops." But after police spoke with Mr. Coffey and found out that both he and his children were just fine, They considered the fire to just be arson. Hours later, around 2 p.m., another 911 call was placed, this time by Adam, reporting that Zara was missing. The father told police that he believed that she had been taken by whoever had threatened Mr. Coffee, but also said that he hadn't seen her since 2:30 a.m. when she was sound asleep. Firefighters were at the house around 5:30 a.m., so you would have thought that he had checked on her at that point. So why was it that he wasn't calling until now?
Tampa County 911.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good.
I need police.
Secret Police 911. Where's your emergency?
Yeah, my daughter is missing.
I'm sorry? Your
My daughter
missing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what's your address?
21 21st Avenue, Northwest. The police were out here last night. They were firing a ransom note for my boss's daughter. I got up a little while ago, and it appears they took my daughter instead of my boss's daughter.
Okay, how old's your daughter?
She's 10. She's handicapped. She has a prosthetic leg, so that...
How long has she been missing?
We checked in there last night about 2:30, and she was there, and all this happened last night about 5 o'clock, so I don't know if they set a fire in the yard to distract us to go out, and when they snuck in the door, or I don't know.
Okay, I'm not familiar with what happened last night. What happened last night?
Last night, we were woken up. My dog woke me up, and I had a fire in the backyard, and somebody had put gas in my company vehicle that I drive for work. They left a ransom note on the company vehicle to my boss saying they had his daughter and his son was next. And his daughter's fine. His daughter came with him here last night when I called him. And it appears they may have taken my daughter instead of his daughter.
They took his daughter. Okay, do you know who this was?
I don't know who it was.
That may have taken her?
No, ma'am.
Do you have any idea why they were threatening to take his daughter?
I don't know.
Okay, what's your name?
My name is Adam Baker.
And your phone number? Okay, so no one has seen your daughter since 2:30 this morning?
No, like I said, we had all that drama last night, and me and my wife went back to bed. And my daughter's, I think, coming into puberty, so she's hitting that broody stage. So we only see her when she comes out, when she wants something, and that's about it.
Okay, and did you say that she was handicapped?
Yes, ma'am. She has a above the knee amputation.
Okay, she has one leg?
One leg, yes,
that's
ma'am.
partially amputated?
Yeah, she has a prosthetic leg, which apparently they're taking with her.
Prosthetic leg was taken with her?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you don't have any idea at all?
No, like I said, it was all addressed to him, and apparently it was all taken out on him, and I guess they thought he lived in this house.
On this. Okay, I was talking to my partner.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Did you talk to your boss about it?
I've just spoken to him, and he told me that he's going to be here shortly.
Okay. So, do you think that he knows?
We had an officer out here last night, and he ran through who he thought it may have been, like an ex-employee or something.
Okay. And you said 21 25th Avenue Northwest?
21 21st Avenue, sorry.
21st Avenue?
Yes, ma'am.
21 21st Avenue. Okay, hold on just a second.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I see it now. I wouldn't find the call. Okay.
It was a officer Roland.
Okay. All right. Okay, all right. We're getting the police on the way out there. If you find out anything at all in the meantime before we get the officer out there, call me back. Anything that would help us as far as finding your daughter.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Bye-bye.
It's very clear that something's up with the situation, because who makes a joke on a 911 call when their daughter is missing? The other thing that was odd about what Adam said was that Zara's prosthetic leg had also been taken along with her. But if she actually had been abducted in the middle of the night from her bed, she wouldn't have been wearing it at the time. An Amber Alert was quickly issued for 10-year-old Zara, and the search for her began. Now, Zara's stepmother story was that she, Adam, and Zara had gone to Oktoberfest in Hickory on the evening of October 8th, and they had returned back home afterwards. Zara then went to bed. Sometime around 2:30 in the morning, for whatever reason, Elisa decided to check in on Zara, and she was fine at that point. It was a few hours later, at 5:20 that morning, that Elisa woke up again and discovered the fire. However, when Adam spoke to authorities, his story was much different. He told them that he had not seen Zara since Wednesday, October 6th. That would later change, though, and he would say that the last time he had actually seen her was on October 7th.
I just hope I can get my daughter back. I miss her so much.
Outside of the girl's father and stepmother, last seeing her on October 6th, 7th, or 8th, no one else had seen her in close to a month. Then on October 11th, Adam would appear on Good Morning America to discuss Zara's disappearance. And he would say that he had some suspicion that his wife Elisa was involved. But people still weren't sure that he also was not involved.
Do you think that your wife was anyway involved in your daughter's disappearance?
I'm not sure. I'd like to think no, because that's my wife. Until they've completed their investigation and can tell me some more, I can't honestly say.
At this point, the FBI had now joined in on the search for Zara, and they began gathering video surveillance footage from local businesses in hopes that it would shed some light on her disappearance and whereabouts. They additionally requested help from the South Carolina Search and Rescue Dog Association, and when the canines were brought into the scene, they indicated that there was the scent of human remains on the family's property, as well as inside both Adam's work truck and Elisa's Toyota Camry. These vehicles were, of course, seized, and detectives would find even more incriminating evidence inside. This included gas cans, lighters, and various drug paraphernalia. Additionally, they took 3 swabs from the inside of Adam's truck, and they indicated the presence of blood. Inside the Baker's home, police discovered that some of the walls had just recently been repainted. Additionally, pieces of paintbrush were found inside the fire that had been started on the morning that Zara went missing. And once a black light was used, authorities uncovered multiple blood spatters throughout the home. Dogs were then brought out to the area where Adam had worked, which was about 19 miles away from the home. Here, they would pick up the scent of human decomposition in piles of mulch, on various logs, and on a wood chipper. But after hours of searching, authorities were unable to find anything further. That same day, Elisa not only failed a polygraph, but she would also admit that she had been the one who left the note on her husband's windshield. According to her, it was because she was angry at their landlord, Mr. Coffey, and she wanted to get back at him. This led to her being arrested and charged with felony obstruction of justice. She was also given a handful of other charges, including larceny, writing bad checks, communicating threats, and driving with a revoked license. At this point, authorities canceled the Amber Alert for Zara, and they began calling the case a homicide investigation instead of a missing person. Around the time that Elisa first appeared in court on her charges, a tip also came over to police in regards to Zara. This unknown person stated that not long before the girl went missing, she'd been seen at a home on County Line Road in Hildebrand, about 10 minutes away from where she lived. She was there with 2 men who were cousins named Timothy Young and Sammy James. According to the tipster, Sammy told him that he had done something very bad and needed to leave town. Also, according to this person, when Elisa went to pick Zara up later, she had blood running down the inside of her legs, like she had been badly assaulted. The source then said that Elisa had a relationship with one of these men. And the tipster also asked Timothy if Zara had been killed that day, but he just said that he believed she might have gotten hit in the head. Police would go out to the home on County Line Road shortly after to investigate. And when they did, they discovered a mattress in the yard that had a large dark stain on it. But when they knocked on the door and asked Timothy about it, He said that he had just urinated one night while he was drunk, and now he was trying to air it out. He additionally stated that while he knew Zara, she had never been to his house. Timothy would go on to be questioned further by detectives, and he would also pass a polygraph test, so eventually he was let go. At that time, detectives decided that they were going to tell Elisa that if she didn't come forward with more information in regards to Zara's whereabouts, she would be facing the death penalty. And upon hearing this, she quickly began to break. It's also said that the reason she began talking was because just days earlier, police had located Zara's mattress in a landfill. And there was some very damning DNA evidence found on it. According to Elisa, for weeks prior to Zara's death, she had been sick and her health had been declining. Then on September 24th, she found the little girl in bed and she wasn't breathing. The stepmother claimed that she proceeded to give Zara CPR for close to half an hour. However, this didn't work, and when Elisa realized that Zara was gone, she called Adam up at work and told him what had happened. According to her, he then rushed home and began trying to calm his wife down, telling her that he would handle things. After that, Elisa stated that Adam took Zara's body into the bathroom, and he turned on the shower so that she couldn't hear what was going to happen next, which, according to her, was dismembering his daughter's body. Because since Adam was only in the United States on a tourism visa, she said that he was willing to do anything he had to do so he wouldn't be sent back without his wife. The stepmother then informed investigators that Zara's body had been dispersed in several different locations, and she told them where they should look. Zara's father, Adam, was also placed under arrest at this point, but not in connection with his daughter's death, rather for other unrelated charges, including assault with a deadly weapon, failure to return rental property, and writing bad checks. He would post his $7,000 bail just days later. Elisa was additionally charged with second-degree homicide with aggravating circumstances. Then on October 27th, Zara's prosthetic leg would be found near Gunpowder Creek. As investigators continued to search for her remains over the next few days, they slowly began uncovering human bones, which when tested, matched Zara's DNA.
The search for Zara Baker is over.
Investigators are devastated that we're not able to find Zara alive and bring her home safely.
Investigators found human remains which match the missing 10-year-old in a wooded area outside her hometown.
Her dismembered body had decomposed so much by now that her cause of death was never able to be determined. However, based on evidence that was found, police believed that Elisa had beaten Zara to death while the young girl was lying on her bed, possibly sleeping. Then she was dragged into the bathroom where she was dismembered. Now, Adam was still denying any involvement in his daughter's death and dismemberment. And while investigators would find that Elisa's phone had pinged in the areas where Zara's remains were discovered, Adam's had been at work. However, there was a lot of communication between the two during this time, which was rather unusual. Further adding suspicion to the father was the fact that Adam had lied to police and told them that he had seen his daughter at 2:30 in the morning, when he clearly had not. But Adam wasn't charged with anything further, and he would end up being deported back to Australia once he had taken care of his other criminal charges. In September of 2011, Elisa would take a plea deal, and she was sentenced to only 18 years in prison. However, she had also been selling prescription drugs out of her home for years, so she was additionally charged with 7 counts of possessing, distributing, and conspiring to distribute prescription drugs. For this, she was sentenced to another 10 years in prison, which is to be served after she's already served the 18 years for Zara's death. Then in April of 2012, a skull was discovered, and it was later confirmed to belong to Zara. Come to find out, the little girl's real mother, Emily, had been searching for her daughter for years, but according to her, every time she'd find Adam, he would disappear again. Emily had just recently found Adam online, only 3 days before Zara was reported as missing. A funeral for 10-year-old Zara Baker was held privately, and a memorial outside the home where she had most recently lived also began to grow, following the discovery of her remains. Here, people left letters, flowers, cards, balloons, and stuffed animals for the young girl. Additionally, a 3,600-square-foot park and playground was built in Hickory, North Carolina, in memory of the young girl, and it was named Zara Baker Memorial Park.
And Zara, if you'll recall, was a cancer survivor who had lost her left leg and hearing to the disease. This playground was designed with her struggles in mind.
It's very different. It's designed for all children to come and play, whether you're able-bodied or disabled in a wheelchair, whether you can run, whether you can speak, whether you can see, whatever you can do, you can come here and play with your friends.
There was so much to investigate, so much to do, that some cases have slipped through the net.
Failed by the system and the people he trusted most to take care of him. The death of a little boy who dreamed of being a footballer will now be the subject of local and national investigations.
Arthur Labinjo Hughes was born on January 4, 2014, to his mother, Olivia Labinjo Halcrow, and his father, Thomas Hughes. He loved going to school and wanted to be a superhero, with his favorite superhero being Batman. Arthur also loved sausage rolls, playing cricket, and he wanted to be a football player when he grew up. He additionally adored spending time with his extended family. Arthur's mother and father separated around the time that he turned 2, and they would continue to share custody. However, Arthur primarily lived with his mother, Olivia. Then, in February of 2019, Olivia stabbed her live-in partner, Gary Cunningham, to death after a long period of mutual domestic violence. This led to Arthur's father, Thomas, becoming his sole caregiver, and Arthur moved in with him in his annex behind Thomas's parents' home. Arthur also had to change schools at this point, and he began attending Dickens Heath Community Primary School. According to Arthur's grandmother, he was very nervous about all these big changes in his life, but he quickly became a happy, well-rounded child. In August of 2019, the little boy's father would meet a woman named Emma Tustin on the dating website Plenty of Fish. Emma would be introduced to Arthur pretty early on in the relationship, and according to her and Arthur became friends right away. But Emma also had a history of domestic violence, both as the victim and as the perpetrator. She also had 4 children of her own, 2 of which continued to live with her. Initially, after Arthur's mother was arrested, he still had telephone contact with her 3 times a week, but this all came to an end in October of 2019. His father, Thomas, had stopped the communication not only between Arthur and his mother, but also between Arthur and his maternal grandmother and everyone else on that side of his family. Then, in December of 2019, Arthur's mother, Olivia, initiated the process to establish contact with her son again. The Child and Family Court Advisory Support System then became involved in his life. When Arthur returned to school following the summer holiday, his teacher would say that she had no concerns about the boy. But as autumn grew closer, she noticed that Arthur seemed to be less happy. His uncle also noted that Thomas had become a lot stricter with the boy, and Arthur was often very fearful of getting in trouble. Soon after, an official at Arthur's school organized a meeting with Arthur's father, Thomas, as well as his grandmother, over her concerns that the boy was developing an obsession with things like guns, killing, and violence. Arthur had become very anxious and was fearful that his father would leave him or kill him. Then there was the incident that occurred during the school's nativity play, when a baby had been removed from its crib and Arthur became very upset. In early 2020, Thomas would take his son to multiple medical appointments, but Arthur was never diagnosed with any mental health problems. Meanwhile, the pandemic led to the closure of all schools in the UK and a national lockdown by the end of March of 2020. It was at the beginning of this lockdown that Arthur and his father began to stay with Thomas's new girlfriend, Emma. After a few weeks, Thomas's mother asked that he and Arthur move back into the annex behind her house, but Thomas refused and instead decided that they would move in with Emma. But only a couple weeks into their new living arrangement, at Emma's Solihull home on April 14th, Arthur and his father stayed overnight at his grandparents' home once again, following a disagreement between Thomas and Emma. Just 2 days later, the couple would reconcile, and Thomas and Arthur returned to living with Emma. This was despite his grandparents' concerns that Arthur was not being treated correctly in the home. And they even tried to convince Thomas to leave Arthur with them so they could care for him, but he refused. The same day that Arthur went back to living with Emma and his father Thomas, his grandmother Joanne Hughes contacted Child Services. In regards to bruising that she had noticed on Arthur's back, as well as scratches on his face, the grandmother questioned the explanation that had been given to her by Thomas, which was that the bruising had been a result of a play fight between Arthur and one of Emma's sons. When the agency went out to Emma's home, they observed a scratch on Arthur's face and a faded bruise on his back. The social worker would ask both Arthur and one of Emma's sons how happy and safe they felt in the home on a scale of 0 to 10, with 0 being represented as the floor and the ceiling as the opposite. Both boys very confidently jumped up and pointed to the ceiling, indicating that they felt safe and happy there. Therefore, the social worker saw no safeguarding concerns, and the case was closed out shortly after. During this visit, Arthur's father Thomas was also offered an early help program to assist his son in dealing with his traumatic past, but he declined. It would later be discovered that Thomas and Emma had coached Arthur and the other child into lying to social services about the fight between the two and warned that if they didn't, they would be taken out of the home. Arthur's uncle, Daniel Hughes, reached out to police in regards to the concerning bruises on Arthur's back, even sending them photos, but would never hear anything from them again. Arthur's grandmother also reached out to his school at this point and informed them about the referral that had been made to social services. This led to a school official contacting the agency, but they were told that they had no concerns about Arthur's well-being. Additionally, Emma Tustin's stepfather contacted social services and made an anonymous referral because he was in fear for Arthur's safety. But still, nothing was done. Then, in May of 2020, things only worsened for Arthur. He was made to stand in the hallway for hours on end, sometimes for as many as 14 hours. And Emma would often send video and audio clips to Thomas of Arthur crying during these punishments. Eventually, the couple even installed cameras in the home so that they could watch Arthur while he was being punished, and they didn't need to be there to actually deal with it. Emma actually had more than 200 audio recordings of Arthur in distress saved to her phone, including 2 particularly horrific clips in which the boy can be heard crying that nobody loves him and crying for food. And his father Thomas, who was receiving these clips from Emma during the day while he was at work, encouraged the behavior, even one time telling Emma to just end him. The couple would also repeatedly insult the child, calling him things like weasel, Hitler, devil child, and Satan. As you can see in the video footage that was taken, Arthur was being forced to sleep on the living room floor, instead of in the bedroom with Emma's other children. On top of that, he was not allowed to eat with the rest of the family, but they made sure to eat in front of him. At one point, Emma would even say to Thomas, "I want you, but not him," referring to Arthur. When schools reopened in June of 2020, Arthur did not attend, and his father would make up excuses for the child's absences. The first day, he told school officials that the boy hadn't slept well, so he wouldn't be coming in. Then, over the next few days, Thomas reported that his son was losing weight because of not eating well and he might faint. Arthur would never end up going back to school again before his death. Over a 3-day period from June 12th to the 14th, Arthur was isolated for 25 hours in a hallway while Emma's children could be seen enjoying food and activities. On June 15th, Emma made a hairdresser's appointment and brought Arthur with her. But once they got there, she made Arthur face the door and not move the entire time. The hairdresser would later describe the boy as looking very thin and frail. His legs were shaking and he didn't seem like he could hold himself up very long. The next day, on June 16th, CCTV footage that was taken from the home's living room showed Arthur, who'd slept on the floor, looking very weak as he struggled to carry his blankets out of the room. The family would again return to the hairdressers. This time, Thomas would go as well, and he and Emma took turns shouting at Arthur while they were there, almost like it was a game of tennis. The hairdresser would sneak Arthur a glass of water when Emma and Thomas weren't looking, and she said that the little boy looked absolutely petrified. Once they returned back home that day, Arthur's father, Thomas, would go out to run some errands, leaving the boy home with Emma. Around 2:30 p.m., Emma sent Thomas a text telling him that his son was lying on the floor and wouldn't get up after he had hit his head several times. Along with this message, she sent a photo of Arthur, who was unconscious and barely breathing. CCTV footage also showed Emma at this time picking up Arthur and trying to prop him up on the sofa. Thomas returned back home shortly after, and he tried to give his son some medication. When this clearly had zero effect because the boy had hit his head, they finally decided that it was time to call emergency services at 2:42 p.m.
Ambulance service, is the patient breathing?
Barely.
Okay, is he breathing right now though, even if he's...
Is he breathing, Tom? He keeps taking big dark breaths. Basically, my 6-year-old stepson is falling, he's banged his head.
Okay.
And while he was on the floor, he's banged his head another 5 times.
Okay.
He's lost colour, he's got a big lump on his head.
Is he awake?
So what, sorry?
Is he awake?
He's half in and out,
Okay.
but he's banged his head quite hard.
Is his breathing noisy or abnormal?
Is it noisy or abnormal? It's barely there, he's barely breathing, he's in and out, he's taking it hard.
Okay.
He's basically been treating us all like shit. He's threw himself on the floor, he's headbutting the floor. I'm trying to pick him up in the process, he's headbutting me in the process.
Okay.
I've got him up, he was breathing like a little bit better at first.
Yeah.
Washed him down, put some water down him, tried to obviously get him like, a bit more colour in him, but then obviously I've seen the lump on his head that he's done to himself.
Right. Help's been arranged for him. Okay.
Yeah.
Try and keep calm for me. Can you get him lay out flat on his back?
Flat on his back.
How old is he?
He's 6, nearly 7.
Paramedics would arrive at Emma's home shortly after, and when they did, they found a neighbor performing CPR on Arthur. The 6-year-old had bruises all over his body, looked underweight, and his gums were bleeding. Emma was there too, crying and claiming that Arthur had done this to himself after headbutting the floor. But first responders and police were both very suspicious of what Emma had told them happened.
Just briefly, what happened?
Basically, he'd gone out to get me a birthday cake for the kids. Arthur was told to sit on the thinking step. Arthur's put himself all over the floor. He's banged himself off the radiator. He's hit me, he's kicked me in the process of me trying to get him back on the thinking step. He's then gone on all fours on the floor and I've told him to get up. And I shut the door over and all I heard was a crack off the floor. He was headbutting the floor on all fours. Headbutted the floor once, said, "Arthur, get up, you're going to hurt yourself. I've phoned your dad." He went, "I don't care." At that point he was fine. And then he dropped his head again as I've tried to bear hug him and pick him up, and he headbutted the floor 3 times.
Here on this
carpet? Round about, the door was shut, so if you go in, I'll show you. Because it's probably about here his head was, but it's concrete, there's no underlay under that. But he'd banged his head 3 or 4 times. Obviously then went to pick him up. He'd knocked himself unconscious. I picked him up, put him on the sofa, poured water in his mouth.
So you've come in, he's banged his head 3 or 4 times
I was
here.
in the kitchen, then I've sat down in the living room and that's when he threw himself on the floor.
And you heard him banging his head? So what did you do?
I came out to him and told him to get up. He told me no. So I tried to bear hug him and put my arms underneath him and pick him up. And he dropped and he banged his head another 3 times off the floor. And as I picked him up, he hit me and he kicked me as I was trying to get him up.
And then what? So, and you went?
I picked him up off the floor.
Yeah.
Tried to put him on the stairs just to get him to, but his head's obviously going out, so I put him straight on the settee. I said, "Reverend, you've got to phone an ambulance."
So he's unresponsive?
Yeah. Like I say, he's like, the last 6 months, he's battered both my kids. He's smashed this house to pieces. He's battered his dad. He's hit me. When I tried to get him off the floor from headbutting the floor, he headbutted me and he kicked me and he's hit me. Yesterday we went to my friend's house and he pushed me down 5 stairs. "You're not my real mum, I hate ya. I'm gonna get my mum to kill you," he said. And even so, I've done my best for that kid. It's me. I tried to get him off the floor.
It's incredibly sickening to hear Emma talk about how she was treated poorly by Arthur, a 6-year-old. A 6-year-old who was now fighting for his life because of her. The little boy was then rushed to the Birmingham Children's Hospital, where doctors concluded that nothing could be done to save his life. And Arthur's life support was unplugged the very next morning at 1 a.m. When he'd been admitted to the hospital, Arthur had over 130 bruises on his body. He also had a head injury and had been poisoned with salt. It was determined that his severe head trauma had been what killed him, and was likely caused by the little boy being vigorously shaken and his head banged repeatedly against a hard surface. Due to the nature of Arthur's injuries and the highly suspicious story given by Emma and Thomas, they were both arrested on the evening of June 16th, initially on suspicion of assault, but they would both later be charged with murder. They were additionally facing 4 counts of child cruelty. According to one of the fathers of Emma's children, she had only ever wanted to have children in the first place for the attention that they brought her as newborns and for the child benefits. Money meant for her kids would be spent on tattoos and clothing for herself. This man said that Emma knew how to work the system and would turn on the waterworks, lie, and say that her partner was hurting her if a social worker showed up. One time, he even claimed that Emma had thrown herself out of a window, breaking her leg to stop him from going out for drinks with a friend in order to celebrate the birth of their new baby. Another one of Emma's ex-boyfriends would say that she had jumped from a parking garage when he tried to end things with her. This had resulted in her 2 younger children going to live with their father. On top of all of that, Emma was also pregnant with Thomas's baby when she was arrested, but she would end the pregnancy while she was in custody at 21 weeks. When Thomas and Emma ended up going to trial, a medical expert would testify that there was no way that Arthur's injuries could have been self-inflicted. A specialist kidney consultant would say that in order for Arthur's body to have such high levels of salt, he had either ingested 6.5 tablespoons of salt on the day that he had died, though the expert could not see how a child could have possibly done this on his own, or Arthur had been repeatedly poisoned by heavily contaminated food or water. In the end, Emma Tustin was found guilty of murdering Arthur Labinjo Hughes, and his father Thomas was found guilty of manslaughter. Emma was jailed for life with a minimum of 29 years. His father was also given life with a minimum of 21 years. Not long after that, however, the Court of Appeals would increase Thomas's sentence to a minimum of 24 years, finding his prior sentence too lenient. They refused to change Emma's sentence, however, finding that hers reflected her actions. Madeline Halcrow, Arthur's maternal grandmother, reported that Emma was obsessed with the idea that Thomas would go back to Arthur's biological mother, Olivia, once she got released from prison, and that the only way to get Olivia out of her life was to get Arthur out of her life.
Was the happiest child. He was very, very much loved by everyone, and he was my sunny delight. He had a wicked sense of humour. He really did. He was just adorable. Arthur was very intuitive, and he must have had this sense of impending doom that something was going to happen to him. The most disturbing thing to me, I said, there's new bruises on top of old, which tells me this has been going on. And, you know, there's yellow bruises, there was purple bruises, all over. Seeing them, I just imagined the pain Arthur would have been in.
Shortly after Emma and Thomas's convictions, the government announced that there would be a national inquiry into Arthur's case. This review would end up finding that Child Protective Services had been involved in Arthur's life on various occasions dating back to 2018, but had failed the little boy repeatedly by not intervening to help. Arthur's death made a significant impact on the local community and particularly football fans. His favorite team, Birmingham City FC, named a family area at the St. Andrews Stadium after him, and supporters sang his name in a march through Birmingham prior to the match. He was also honored at various football matches on December 4th, 2021. Beginning in 2020, an annual preseason game named the Arthur Cup was announced, with a portion of proceeds from the match going to the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. A 6-tree tribute was also planted near the house on Cranmore Road where Arthur had lived. A public vigil would be held outside the house following his death. A Solihull police officer's poem about Arthur the superhero was used on a family memorial plaque for the 6-year-old, which was also placed near the home where he had lived. The officer who wrote the poem, Jess Davies, had a son who was just 5 months older than Arthur. She said that the incident left a real impact on her, and so she penned the poem for the little boy. The poem read, "Arthur, close your eyes and you'll feel him near. The most magical story you'll ever hear. A superhero with the biggest smile. He came into this world for a little while. How he loves his squashies and football too, singing Keep Right On to his boys in blue. The happiest soul with eyes so bright, the cheekiest smile a sunny delight. Superheroes are real, you see. They are here to look after you and me. They touch our hearts and light up the sky, but then we must all say goodbye. This superhero could only stay a while. Heaven needed his superhero smile. We mustn't be sad, for he has work to do. Little Arthur's shining love on all of you."
He was sweet. He was very obedient. He was definitely a mama's boy. Sam was obsessed with Toy Story ever since he was a baby. He loved Toy Story, and Buzz and Woody, those two were his favorite, but he loved all of them.
The boy's body was found in a motel roughly 2 hours northeast of Houston 2 weeks ago, days after he was reported missing. The medical examiner says the manner of death was homicide.
Samuel Olson was born on May 29, 2015, to his mother, Sarah Olson, and his father, Dalton Olson. He was a smart, sweet, funny, and affectionate little boy who was also a mama's boy. He loved dinosaurs and even knew the names of most of them. Samuel was obsessed with all things having to do with the movie Toy Story. And after he received Woody and Buzz Lightyear action toys as presents, he began carrying them everywhere with him. Samuel's parents had split up in January of 2017, after realizing they just weren't good together. Following this, the little boy's mother, Sarah, obtained primary custody of Samuel and then moved in with her own mother, Tiffany Farmaca, in Center, Texas. The boy's father, Dalton, who was said not to be very involved in his life, retained visitation rights with him and was ordered to start paying child support. However, after Samuel went for a visit with his father in January of 2020, Dalton then refused to return the boy back to his mother. After that, Dalton eluded all court efforts to force him to bring Samuel back to his mother. And these efforts that were being made by the court were supposedly prolonged even further due to the global pandemic. Samuel's mother, Sarah, even tried to get police involved with gaining custody of her son back. However, she was told that it was just a civil matter, something they didn't enforce, and she would have to go before a judge, which she had already done. Sarah even tried to serve her ex with multiple court orders, only to find out that he had once again moved. This also meant that little Samuel was frequently switching schools during this time. Finally, on May 31st, 2020, Sarah was allowed to see Samuel again at his 5th birthday party. According to Sarah's mother, Sarah had asked the process server to be there that day to serve Dalton with the court papers, but she was told that they could not do that out of concerns for COVID. So Sarah and her mother had attended Samuel's birthday party, and after not seeing her for months, the little boy would say to his mom, "I knew you would come for me." It was at that moment that Sarah decided to try to sneak out the side door at Dalton's mother's home, where the party was being held, with Samuel, and take him back home with her, where he belonged. But as she was attempting to leave with her son, Dalton caught on to what was happening, and he ran out of his mother's house and jumped in front of Sarah's car. He then tried to claim that Sarah had run him over. Following this confrontation, Sarah remained at the house until police arrived. But when she tried to explain the situation, she was arrested for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. So once again, she was not able to save Samuel, and he remained with his father Dalton. A protective order and a no-contact order from Dalton to Sarah was also issued after this. And it specifically excluded Samuel, so communication with Dalton and his family about Samuel was still allowed. The day that this happened, two other very telling things also occurred. Dalton's new girlfriend, whose name was Teresa Balboa, said to Sarah's mother while screaming at her, "I wish I had my bat so I could beat Sarah with it." And Dalton psychotically told Sarah, "You will never see or speak to Samuel again." And this statement would sadly prove to be true, because about 10 months later, on May 27th, 2021, 2 days before Samuel's 6th birthday, he was reported as missing by his father Dalton. Dalton and his new girlfriend, Teresa Balboa, would tell police that around 7:30 that morning, Sarah and a fake cop in uniform had shown up at Teresa's mother's home in the 8800 block of McAvoy Drive, where they had been visiting. Upon her arrival, according to Teresa, Sarah had demanded custody of her son back. So Teresa, saying that she had no other choice, handed Samuel over. Yet Teresa hadn't called Dalton, who was at work, until 11:40 that morning to inform him what had happened, and the pair didn't report the boy as missing until 6 p.m. Now, Teresa and Dalton didn't even live together. They lived about an hour and a half apart. But starting April 30th, Samuel had been staying with Teresa at her apartment in Webster, Texas. According to Dalton, the last time he had spoken to his son was over the phone about a week prior, on May 21st. Now, as for why Samuel was staying with Teresa to begin with, is not exactly clear, because Dalton would give two different stories. One was that Samuel had to quarantine at her apartment to avoid bringing COVID back home to where he lived with Dalton and his high-risk grandfather. But then Dalton would also say that he was staying with Teresa because he had no car and he worked long hours in construction. The day after little Samuel was reported as missing, his father Dalton filed an emergency declaration to grant him sole custody of his son. And in this, he accused the boy's mother, Sarah, of being an unfit parent. When investigators spoke with Samuel's mother, Sarah, to see if she had her son or if she had any idea as to his whereabouts, she would tell them that she had not seen her son in close to a year. Then she provided investigators with security footage, which proved that she had not left the house at all that day. Houston police would then issue a media alert for the missing little boy. However, they made no mention of the uniformed officer in Teresa's initial statement, as I'm sure they had no reason to believe her nonsense. It was reported that the last time anyone outside of the family had seen Samuel was on April 30th, when he had last attended school. However, no one from the school ever reported this to law enforcement. Now here's what both the little boy's father, Dalton, and his girlfriend, Teresa, had to say about Samuel's disappearance.
My name is Dalton Olson, Dalton Olson.
Dalton, this must be some rough times. Can you tell me what it's been like?
I feel like I'm living in a nightmare I can't wake up from. No parent should ever have to feel this. I can't eat, I can't sleep. I'm at a loss for words, man.
I understand. Have the police told you anything or given you any...
We're doing our best right now to get out there and search for him. We're trying to cooperate and give them everything. We've given them everything that we can. Any little information we think is important or even as insignificant as we think it is, we still hand it over. So we're just trying to do everything we can to play our part to help bring my son home safe, because that's all that matters at the end of today is please help me find my son.
What was your son's name?
His name is Samuel Olson. He just turned 6 years old on the 29th. He has a little bit of shaggy hair on top, shorter on the sides.
Yeah. And you said you're going to be passing out some flyers.
Yes, sir. We're all in the area. We've been in the Pasadena, LaPorte area passing out flyers. Right now we're over here on the southwest side of Houston passing out flyers. We're going to go to the area where he was last seen, and we're going to pass out flyers. I mean, anywhere we can just hand out anything for somebody if they've seen something. I mean, any little bit of information will help.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Or what do you want people to know?
We just want to find Sam. That's it. We're just asking any information, anybody, please help us find Sam.
And what does he mean to you?
Everything. He's my baby. Like I said, I've done schoolwork with him, taught him a lot of stuff, and we just want him back. Any information, please help us find him and bring him home.
And how are you feeling right now?
Words can't even describe how distraught, overwhelmed, scared, like so many emotions that it's just been really hard. It's been really hard.
You really love him.
Of course, I've been over backwards, done everything I can for him, for Dalton also, because it's been hard. It's been really hard. But we know we're gonna find him.
So tell us what you're doing kind of with police and everything like that right now.
We're doing flyers, everything that police ask us to do, we're doing it. Anything that we've been told, advised to do, we're doing it.
So have
everything
been like inside your place and all of that? Like,
yes.
Because that's part of
Yes. They've been inside the apartment, they've been inside everywhere. Like, they've searched. And we're gonna continue to search until we find him.
What do you think? Where do you think he could be?
Somewhere with not with us. And that's the important thing, is that he is not with us and we need to bring him back to us. So I can't say where he could be, where he might be, like, because honestly we don't know. At this point we don't know. All we can do is keep searching and doing, everything we've been doing. And we're gonna continue to do it.
You think he's definitely alive?
Oh yeah. We just keep picturing him sitting, watching cartoons, waiting for us. Just sitting there waiting for us. And we're gonna get him. We're gonna find him.
Tell me about your relationship. Did he call you mom? Or at least
Super mommy. That was his choice. It wasn't forced. We didn't force him, because I don't want to force that. But he used to call me Super mommy or Teresa. It was still uncomfortable for him. Because he's little. He's a kid, and he knows who his mom is. But he also knows that how much I care about him and everything that I've been doing for him and have done for him. So we're gonna find him. I know we're gonna find him.
So even though police had said that the last time that Samuel was seen was on April 30th, his paternal grandmother, Tanya Olson, would tell authorities that the last time she had seen her grandson was on May 2nd. She also said that she had heard Samuel in the background of a phone call about a week prior to his disappearance. Tanya additionally made a statement in which she said that her son Dalton, Samuel's father, was not a bad father and he would never harm that baby. And he loves him to death. He would die for him. Samuel's maternal grandmother, Tiffany Farmica, on the other hand, would say that at Samuel's last birthday party, he had told her that he did not like being with his father. And he also did not like Teresa. According to him, they were both very mean to him. However, he didn't elaborate any further. On May 31st, 4 days after Samuel had been reported as missing, Houston police and Texas EquiSearch began searching for the 5-year-old at the Webster apartment complex where he was said to have been staying with his father's girlfriend Teresa and Teresa's ex-boyfriend, who was now her roommate, Benjamin Rivera. But they didn't find Samuel. It wasn't long after that, though, that Crime Stoppers would receive a tip that led police to room 106 at a Best Western hotel in Jasper, Texas, more than 100 miles away from Samuel's father's home in Houston. In the hotel room, they would find Teresa Balboa, along with a large plastic tote. And inside that tote, they would find the decomposing body of 5-year-old Samuel Olson. it looked like he had been dead for some time. An autopsy would later determine that the child had died from blunt force trauma, and his death was a homicide. When police had recovered Samuel's body, they also arrested Teresa, and she was taken into custody on initial charges of tampering with evidence, and her bond was set for $600,000. Her charges, however, would later be upgraded to capital murder. Authorities also found surveillance footage that showed Teresa and another man removing the plastic tote that Samuel's body was found in from a truck and bringing it into the hotel room. It would be discovered that this man's name was Dylan Walker, and he had actually been the one who had called Crime Stoppers. According to this man, Dylan, on May 30th, the day before Dylan's body was found, he had met up with his acquaintance, Teresa Balboa, in the parking lot of a Walmart in Cleveland, Texas. There, she asked him to bring her to a storage unit in Webster, Texas, where she grabbed the tote containing Samuel's body. From there, they had driven to the Best Western, where Dylan rented out a room in his name. And after a few hours, he had left Teresa there in room 106. But Dylan, who had noticed a terrible smell emanating from the tote, decided to call Crime Stoppers on his way back home. Dylan Walker was also arrested and charged with tampering with evidence. However, he would quickly make his bond after his arrest and was released. Then a third person was arrested, and suspiciously enough, it wasn't Samuel's father, but rather Teresa's roommate and ex-boyfriend, Benjamin Rivera, who was charged with tampering with evidence as well. He was held on a $100,000 bond, and he would end up making this and also be released. Teresa's roommate Benjamin would end up telling authorities that he had received a phone call from Teresa on May 10th. And at that time, she told him that Samuel was in their apartment, dead. He was at work at the time, but when he had returned to the apartment later, he found the little boy lying on the bed, unresponsive. He said that he had noticed bruising all over the child's body. From there, Benjamin assisted Teresa with placing Samuel's body in the bathtub, where it would remain for another 2 days. Then, on May 13th, Benjamin went to a Walmart where he bought a plastic tote and duct tape. When he returned to the apartment, he helped Teresa wrap Samuel's body in a plastic sheet. They then taped this up and placed it into the plastic tote. After that, they both moved the tote into Benjamin's truck and drove to the storage unit in Webster. Here, they unloaded Samuel's body that was in the container. Now, even though Benjamin claimed that Samuel had died on May 10th, during investigators' search of his phone, they found a text message from Teresa to Benjamin telling him that she needed to speak to him before he came back into the apartment. Then, on May 12th, Teresa had sent him a text message saying she was going to move Samuel's body to the bed, after learning from Benjamin that the apartment's maintenance was going to be entering the unit that day. Surveillance video from a storage facility in Webster would also show Benjamin's truck with the bin that Samuel's body would later be found in, arriving at the unit on May 22nd. A neighbor who had moved into the apartment next door to Teresa on May 11th said that on the second day that her family lived there, around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they had heard loud scratching noises. Really, really loud scratching noises that lasted for about 10 to 15 minutes. So it's unknown when Samuel actually did die. At the time of Teresa Balboa's arrest, she had been out on bail after another incident that had occurred in November of 2020. She had been charged with assault after she had choked Samuel's father, Dalton. There was also a protective order out against her, intended to prevent her from communicating with Dalton or Samuel. But this order had clearly been violated, and just 2 months later, on January 2nd, 2021, Teresa had announced that she and Dalton were engaged. But my question is, why did Dalton allow this woman to care for his son at all after that incident? Even if he was working all kinds of hours or needed Samuel to quarantine, that's not the kind of person that you would want watching your child. When Dalton was asked by a reporter what he would say to Teresa following her arrest, the father said, "Why? He loved you so much. I do not understand what happened. Why did you? Why did you do this?" The thing is, Teresa Balboa actually had 2 daughters of her own. However, she had lost custody of both of them back in 2019, following accusations that she had been a bad mother. And when a court date was given to her to try to gain custody of these children back, she didn't show up. The father of these children, Alex Rizzo, who was from Oklahoma, would tell authorities that on either May 23rd or the 24th, Teresa had contacted him asking if she could go to visit. But when he told her no, she stopped replying. He now believes that she was trying to use him to run away and hide Samuel's body. According to Alex, he knew that his ex Teresa had some serious issues. She had a very difficult life, but he never thought that something of this magnitude would ever happen. Teresa Balboa's trial was scheduled for June of 2023, but just about a month prior to that, she would take a plea deal and plead guilty to a lesser charge of first-degree murder, admitting that she had killed Samuel by hitting him with a blunt object while he was in her care. She was then sentenced to 52 years behind bars, and she must serve at least 26 of these before she's possibly considered for parole. Samuel's mother, Sarah Olson, would take the stand and provide her victim impact statement following the sentencing, and she would say that Teresa's punishment is not justice. Sarah continued by saying, "She admitted to what she did. For 52 years with a chance of parole after 26, my son didn't even get 6 years of life, but she gets a chance at 1. The mother also later spoke about how she believed that Samuel's father, Dalton, should have also been charged. She, like me, doesn't understand how he couldn't have possibly been involved in Samuel's death. He sent his son to live with someone whom he knew was violent. He hadn't talked to his son in over a week, hadn't seen him in nearly a month, and just willingly went along with Teresa's story that Sarah had come and taken him? It makes no sense. And additionally, he had violated not 1, not 2, but 3 court orders to place Samuel in Teresa's care. Apparently, Dalton also tried to contact Sarah for about a week after Samuel's body was found, but she refused to answer his phone calls. Through an attorney, Dalton Olson has denied any involvement with the disappearance and death of his son Samuel, though neither he or his family has publicly commented on it. Following her grandson's death, Tiffany Farmica would speak publicly, and she would say, "I don't want anyone to forget him. I know it's not going to bring him back, but maybe it will help, so this doesn't happen to some other little boy." Samuel Olson's body would be cremated, and a private service was held for him on Saturday, July 10th, 2021.